The golden retriever entered first. Her name was Harmony, and she moved with the precise, purposeful grace of a guide dog who knew exactly where she was going. Behind her, connected by a white harness, walked 10-year-old Sarah Mitchell. Her small hand gripped the leather handle, but her other hand reached out tentatively, feeling for obstacles that might exist in this strange new world of bright lights and echoing sounds. Blake Shelton had seen many unusual entrances in his years coaching The Voice Kids, but he'd never seen anything like this. The studio fell into a respectful hush as Sarah made her way slowly across the stage, her sneakers squeaking softly against the polished floor. She wore a simple blue dress that her mother had chosen because Sarah said blue felt like her favorite songs sounded calm and deep and true. What happened next would break every heart in that studio and prove that some people see music more clearly than the rest of us ever could. But to understand the miracle that was about to unfold, you need to know how Sarah got to this moment, because her journey to the Voice stage was unlike any other contestant's story. Sarah Mitchell had been born completely blind. Not the kind of blindness that comes with shadows or light perception. Total, absolute darkness that had been her reality since her first breath. But where her eyes couldn't see, her ears had developed something extraordinary. By the age of 2, Sarah could identify any song after hearing just 3 notes. By 4, she was picking out melodies on a toy piano with accuracy that astounded her parents. By 6, she was composing her own music, humming complex harmonies that seemed to come from somewhere beyond her young years. Her parents, David and Lisa Mitchell, had struggled financially to support Sarah's musical education. David worked double shifts at a factory in rural Ohio, while Lisa cleaned houses to pay for Sarah's piano lessons. They'd sold their car to buy Sarah a proper piano, walking everywhere they needed to go because they believed their daughter's gift was too precious to waste. Sarah's piano teacher, Mrs. Chen, had never worked with a blind student before, but she quickly realized that Sarah didn't just play music, she absorbed it, lived it, breathed it in ways that sighted students couldn't imagine. "She doesn't read music," Miss Chen told Sarah's parents after just a few lessons. "She becomes the music. It's like she can see the notes in her mind, see the colors and shapes of every melody." The idea to audition for The Voice Kids came from Sarah herself. She'd been listening to the show with her parents, following every performance, every coach's reaction, every moment of triumph and heartbreak. "Mama," she'd said one evening after a particularly moving episode, "I want to sing there. I want to show people that music isn't about what you can see. It's about what you can feel." The audition process had been challenging. The producers weren't sure how to accommodate a blind contestant, especially one so young. But when they heard Sarah's audition tape, a stunning rendition of Amazing Grace played on piano while she sang, they knew they had to find a way to make it work. Getting to Los Angeles had been an adventure in itself. It was Sarah's first time on an airplane, first time staying in a hotel, first time navigating a world so far from the familiar rhythms of her small Ohio town. But Harmony, her guide dog who had been her constant companion for 2 years, helped her adapt to each new environment with patient professionalism. Standing on the Voice stage now, Sarah felt overwhelmed in ways she'd never experienced. The studio was massive, filled with sounds that painted pictures in her mind: the whisper of air conditioning, the rustle of audience members shifting in their seats, the electronic hum of cameras and lighting equipment. But it was the emotional energy that nearly knocked her over. She could feel the anticipation, the excitement, the weight of hundreds of eyes watching her every move. Blake leaned forward in his red chair, immediately recognizing that this was going to be unlike any audition he'd ever witnessed. The other coaches, Kelly Clarkson, John Legend, and Niall Horan, were equally attentive, understanding that they were about to witness something special. "Take your time, sweetheart," Blake called out gently, his voice carrying that Oklahoma warmth that had endeared him to millions. "You just get comfortable up there." Sarah nodded, but her breathing was becoming rapid and shallow. The magnitude of the moment was hitting her all at once. This was The Voice, the show she'd dreamed about, the stage where dreams came true or were shattered in front of millions of viewers. Harmony sensed her distress and moved closer, pressing her warm body against Sarah's leg in the universal comfort gesture that guide dogs are trained to provide. Sarah's hands found the piano bench, and she sat down carefully, her fingers finding the familiar comfort of the keys. But instead of playing, she began to cry, not the quiet tears of nerves, but the overwhelming sobs of a 10-year-old who suddenly realized she was very far from home, very alone, and very scared. "I can't," she whispered into the microphone, her voice breaking. "I can't see anything. I don't know where I am. I want my mama." The studio fell completely silent. This wasn't stage fright or performance anxiety. This was a child having a moment of complete vulnerability, and everyone present understood they were witnessing something deeply human and heartbreaking. Blake didn't hesitate. He stood up from his red chair and walked directly onto the stage, breaking every protocol the voice had about coach-contestant interaction during blind auditions. "Hey there, Sarah," he said softly, his cowboy boots echoing gently as he approached the piano. "My name's Blake. Can I sit with you for a minute?" Sarah turned toward his voice, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm sorry. I'm scared. Everything sounds so big and I can't see where anything is." Blake knelt down beside the piano bench, putting himself at her eye level even though she couldn't see him. "You know what, sweetheart? You're right. This place is big. Really big. But I want to tell you something that might help." He gestured to the other coaches, who were all watching with expressions of deep concern and compassion. "There are 4 people sitting in chairs about 20 feet in front of you. Our job is to listen to music and help people share their gifts with the world. Right now, we're all just sitting here hoping you'll share your gift with us." Sarah's sobbing began to slow slightly. "But I can't see you. I can't see anything." "Sarah," Blake said, his voice taking on a quality that was both gentle and profound, "I've been making music for most of my life, and I just figured something out by watching you. You don't need to see us to sing to us. You see music better than any of us ever could." Sarah wiped her nose with her sleeve. "What do you mean?" Blake stood up and walked a few steps away, then back again, letting her hear his movement. "When I look at this piano, I see black and white keys. When you put your hands on this piano, you see—" "What do you see, Sarah?" For the first time since her breakdown began, Sarah smiled slightly. "I see colors, and shapes, and stories. Every note has a color, and when you put them together, they make pictures in my mind." "That's exactly what I mean," Blake said, his voice filled with genuine wonder. "You see music the way it's supposed to be seen. The rest of us, we get distracted by all the stuff that doesn't matter. You hear the truth of it." Blake turned to address the other coaches, his voice carrying across the studio. "Kelly, John, Niall, I think we need to turn our chairs around. Not for the audition, but so Sarah knows we're here with her." One by one, the coaches turned their chairs to face Sarah. Kelly Clarkson, herself a mother, had tears in her eyes. John Legend looked moved beyond words. Niall sat forward with the kind of attention that showed he understood he was about to witness something extraordinary. "Now," Blake said, settling into a chair that a stagehand had quietly brought onto the stage, "Sarah, I want you to forget about cameras and audiences and everything scary. I want you to play us one of those pictures you see. Show us what music looks like through your eyes." Sarah took a deep breath, her hands finding the piano keys with the familiarity of coming home. When she began to play, something magical happened in that studio. The opening notes of Imagine filled the space, but her arrangement was unlike anything anyone had ever heard. It was delicate, complex, filled with variations and embellishments that seemed to flow directly from her soul to her fingertips. And then she began to sing. Her voice was pure, clear, and carried an emotional depth that seemed impossible from someone so young. But more than that, it was the way she connected with the music that left everyone breathless. She wasn't performing the song, she was living it, breathing it, painting sonic pictures that everyone in the studio could somehow see. "Imagine all the people living life in peace," she sang, and in her voice, you could hear what peace actually sounded like. Her piano playing became more complex, adding harmonies and counter-melodies that created a rich tapestry of sound. The coaches sat in stunned silence. Blake found himself leaning forward, completely captivated, not just by Sarah's technical skill, but by her artistic maturity. This wasn't just a talented child playing piano and singing. This was a true musician channeling something profound and beautiful. When she finished, the silence in the studio stretched for several heartbeats. Then Blake began to applaud, followed by the other coaches, then the entire audience. But this wasn't typical competition applause. This was reverence, recognition of something truly special. Blake walked back to Sarah's side. "Sarah, that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard in my life. You didn't just play that song, you painted it, you sculpted it, you made it into something completely new." Sarah smiled, the fear and overwhelm replaced by the confidence that comes from doing what you were born to do. "I could see it while I was playing. The music made pictures of a world where everyone was happy." "You know what you just taught me?" Blake asked, his voice thick with emotion. "You taught me that the best musicians aren't the ones who can see all the technical stuff. The best musicians are the ones who can help other people see what music really looks like." Kelly Clarkson spoke up from her chair, her voice clearly emotional. "Sarah, honey, that was absolutely incredible. You have a gift that's so special, so pure. You made me see that song in a completely different way." John Legend added, "Sarah, I've been playing piano my whole life, and I've never heard anyone interpret music the way you just did. Your arrangement was sophisticated, your playing was flawless, but most importantly, your heart was in every single note." Niall, the youngest coach, said simply, "That was magic, Sarah. Pure magic." But this is the moment no one in the studio and no one watching at home ever saw coming. Blake knelt down beside Sarah again and spoke directly to her. "Sarah, I want you on my team, but more than that, I want to learn from you. You've reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place. It's not about what you can see or how you look or any of that superficial stuff. It's about connection, about truth, about sharing something beautiful with the world." Sarah chose Team Blake, not just because he had been the first to comfort her, but because she could hear in his voice the same love for music that drove her own passion. Over the following weeks, Blake became more than Sarah's coach. He became her advocate, ensuring that she had everything she needed to succeed. The voice production team worked with the American Foundation for the Blind to create accommodations that would allow Sarah to compete on equal footing. Tactile markers on the stage, audio cues for timing, and most importantly, the understanding that her blindness wasn't a limitation to be overcome, but a different way of experiencing music that actually gave her advantages. "Working with Sarah changed my whole perspective on what coaching means," Blake said in an interview during the live shows. "I thought my job was to teach her about performance, about connecting with an audience. But she taught me that the deepest connections happen when you stop trying to show people what you think they want to see, and start sharing what you actually feel." Sarah's performances throughout the competition became appointment television. Her version of Hallelujah brought the entire studio to tears. Her original composition, a piece she called Colors of Sound, showcased her ability to create music that seemed to paint pictures in listeners' minds. Each performance was a master class in emotional authenticity. During the finale, Sarah performed with a full orchestra, something she had never experienced before. She played her own arrangement of What a Wonderful World, and as the strings and brass joined her piano and voice, she smiled with pure joy. For Sarah, who had never seen a sunset or a flower or a smiling face, the world was indeed wonderful. It was filled with music, with kindness, with people who had learned to see her gift rather than her disability. Sarah won the Voice Kids, but her victory was about so much more than a singing competition. She had shown millions of viewers that talent comes in many forms, that limitations often become strengths, and that the most powerful art comes from authenticity rather than perfection. In her victory speech, Sarah spoke directly to other children with disabilities. "I want every kid who feels different to know that different is not less than, different is special. Your differences might be exactly what the world needs to hear." Blake stood behind her throughout her speech, his hand gently placed on her shoulder, tears openly streaming down his face, as this 10-year-old girl taught the world a lesson about seeing beyond the surface. Today, Sarah continues to perform and compose, using her platform to advocate for accessibility in music education. Harmony, her guide dog, remains her constant companion, often sitting beside the piano during performances, like a furry reminder that independence comes in many forms. The piano Sarah played on The Voice was later donated to the Ohio School for the Blind, where it continues to help young musicians discover their own gifts. But Sarah's real legacy is in the minds and hearts she changed, in the people who learned to listen more carefully, to see beyond the obvious, to understand that some of the most beautiful music comes from those who experience the world differently. Blake Shelton learned something that night that changed his approach to music forever. "Sarah taught me that the best artists aren't the ones who can see everything. The best artists are the ones who can help other people see what they've been missing. Because sometimes, the clearest vision comes from those who see with their hearts instead of their eyes. Sometimes the most vivid pictures are painted with sound instead of and sometimes a 10-year-old girl with a guide dog can teach a country superstar and millions of viewers what music really looks like when you strip away everything except pure, honest emotion." Sarah Mitchell proved that The Voice isn't about what you can see, it's about what you can make other people feel. And in a world often focused on appearances, that's a lesson worth learning from someone who has mastered the art of seeing with her heart.